Please, I can't sleep.
It's time to listen to Courtney at last on the Ramblings of an Insomniac podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ramblings of an Insomniac. I am Courtney. Hello, how's it going? How's your day going so far? Maybe your day's already done. Maybe it's well into the evening. But how's it going? How did it go? Hopefully well. I am it's Christmas. I already did a podcast earlier today, and I thought I would do another one. And I was like, God, my last podcast was not very merry. You know, it's Christmas. I'm supposed to be happy and like doing positive, happy, merry things. And so I was like, well, I need to do another one. I need a redo. It's Christmas. I need to be like thankful and happy and joyous. But then I started this, and all of a sudden, like I started crying out of freaking nowhere, just started bawling and crying because I realized it's Christmas. And although I don't mind being alone, as in I already did my Christmas stuff with my grandson and my sons and stuff, but it just makes me think about the fact that my loved ones that have passed aren't here, like my mom and my dad and my grandparents, and how much I miss them. And my mom's birthday would have been, coming up soon, and that makes me think of her more. And it's just hard. Holidays are hard when you don't have your loved ones. And I know this sounds silly, but I have like joint custody of my dogs. And so, I went to go visit my dogs, and then that makes me cry because then I have to leave my dogs, and I don't want to leave them because I feel like they think that they were bad and they did something wrong and that I don't want them or something. And it makes me freaking bawl my eyeballs out, and I can't handle it. Oh, and then my other dog is here. And that's the thing. They know that I have two dogs with me. And so I think they're like, what did they do that was so much better than me? What did I do wrong? Why doesn't she want me? Why does she want them? And it just freaking breaks my heart, and I can't stand it. And I bawl every time I have to leave, and I hate it. And, when my kids' dad and I got divorced, it sucked because I didn't want them thinking that, fortunately, one of my sons was old enough. He was like 5, and so we could kind of talk to him and stuff. Well, no, what am I talking about? Actually, my oldest was like 4, and my youngest was 5 months old. And so we could kind of talk to my 4-year-old, and my 5-month-old didn't really know what was going on. But, their dad and I did a great job at splitting our time. I had him 4 days a week. He had him 3 days a week, and we both went to parent-teacher conferences, or if one of us couldn't make it, then the other one went. But we went to holiday, Christmas concerts and sporting events and things like that together. And a lot of times we would celebrate holidays together, like have Thanksgiving together, or have the day before or the day after Thanksgiving together, or have Christmas Eve together, or whatever. We still to this day say Happy Father's Day, Happy Mother's Day, and all of that. And so, this sounds terrible, but it wasn't as hard co-parenting or leaving my kids with their dad for 3 days because I could talk to them, especially as they got older. I could talk to them. They knew what was going on. Whereas animals, they just see you leave and they're like, what did I do wrong? Why is she leaving me? And why is she taking those other animals and not me? And I just fucking hate it. And, oh, I don't know. And I'm missing my mom like crazy. Again, she's the reason that I started doing this podcast originally. Because it was during COVID, and when Kate Brown decided to, and the Biden administration decided to ruin everybody's lives and businesses and livelihood and kill people, I started the podcast because I wanted to get the word out how absolutely heart-wrenching it was to see people in assisted living facilities not be able to be around their loved ones and having to see them through windows or through FaceTime or talk over the phone. Um, that's not the same as being able to physically hug someone, to physically look into someone's eyes, to physically hold someone's hand, especially someone that's in an assisted living facility and is already scared, like my mom, who was the reason that I had her move and be in an assisted living facility is so she could be close to me. She was 3 hours away and she was starting to do a lot of things that I knew she was getting dementia and it wasn't safe for her to be on her own. I did not want her to have to leave her house. She didn't want to leave her house. I felt horrible making her do that. But unfortunately, it was again right before COVID. It was like 2019 and the very end, the very, very end of 2019. And a lot of places, they weren't doing even in-home care. She barely made enough. She barely made over the amount. She made, get this, folks, $139 too much a month to be able to have someone from the state come and care for her at her home so that she didn't have to sell her house that she had for 40 years, that she loved for 40 years, that her husband passed away in and she didn't want to leave, where she felt safe and comfortable, where she had memories, where she had a beautiful view, where she didn't have to have strangers touch. I mean, yes, I guess strangers would still be touching her, but I mean, like changing her and stuff, but it'd be in her own home and she wouldn't have to give up her home. And it's fucking bullshit. It is the worst thing that people are made to sell their homes in order to get care. But meanwhile, illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, I'm not going to call them immigrants, illegal aliens can come to this country and get free everything. They don't have to sell their homes. They don't have to work. They don't have to pay taxes. They can be a criminal. My mom had to give up her home that was paid off, by the way, that she did not owe any money on, to be able, because she made $139 too much a month. 139. I realize you have to draw the line. I realize you can't just keep pushing the line and pushing the line. But no one should have to give up their fucking home and sell their home. That home should be able to be theirs so that they can get care in their own, where they feel comfortable. If they're going to pass away, if they're going to die, if they're going to need care, it doesn't feel comfortable when it's in a strange home and you're giving up your independence. You're totally giving up your independence and you're having strangers care for you in a strange place, in a strange city. That's so unfair. It's so unfair how we treat vets. It's so unfair how we treat our elderly. And yet we give illegal aliens everything. We give entitled, spoiled, rotten leftists everything. So I started this podcast because my mom I couldn't care for her, unfortunately. I couldn't move. I had a great job and I had a home and I had a million animals. And unfortunately, Astoria was not, the income just wasn't there. There weren't enough jobs. And the very few jobs that were there didn't pay anything. They paid minimum wage and the cost of living was too much. And I was drowning. I couldn't make any money there. So I had to move and I ended up getting a pretty decent paying, I ended up getting a great job. And so I wanted my mom to live with me at the time, but I couldn't be home. So again, I wanted a caregiver to maybe come to my place, but I had a 2-story home and she had double hip surgery and couldn't go up and down stairs. And it just, if she was getting dementia, which she was, I didn't have an area that was safe for her and I couldn't make my house safe for her and I couldn't stay home and care for her. So I wanted her to come and be close to me in a city that was closer to me so that I could go every day after work and I could go on my days off. I used to, because she lived so far away, I would go at least once a month on my days off. I had 3 days off, working 4 10s, had 3 days off, and I would drive 3 hours one way to go see her and hang out with her. And I would do that at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, and then drive the 3 hours back. But I knew she was not able to care for herself because every time I would go visit, there was just a lot of stuff that was not good. And it wasn't safe for her to be there by herself. Well, then COVID happened and it was impossible to find an assisted living facility that was taking people. And I wasn't just going to stick her anywhere. I wanted it to have great reviews. I wanted to hear from people, talk to people, go and be able to see it. They weren't doing tours at the time, but it was at the very beginning. So some places were. So I finally found a couple places that had great reviews and were taking people and that wasn't a shithole. And we did that. And then everything was great. And then all of a sudden, Kate Brown and the Biden administration put all these restrictions to where they're preventing anybody in the assisted living from seeing their family. Now, here's the weird part. I was allowed to go pick up my mom and take her outside of assisted living and go grocery shopping, go to a movie, go wherever. So I could be around people, tons of people that have all kinds of germs and cooties and may or may not have had the vaccination. And then I was allowed to bring her back into the facility. But I wasn't allowed to go into her private room that she was not sharing with anybody and just have her and I one-on-one where I could wash my hands, just her and I. I wasn't allowed to do that. But caregivers were allowed to come in and touch her. Doctors, dietitians, housekeeping, they were all allowed to come in. Med techs, they could all come in and touch my mom. I wasn't allowed to come in and put on a mask and wash my hands and be around my mom. It was so fucking ridiculous and made no logical sense. And then my mom I wanted to see my mom because I knew she was getting dementia and I wanted to see her before she forgot about me, before she forgot who I was, before she forgot to dial my phone number. And that's slowly what started happening is that they prevented me from seeing her and prevented them from going out to do social things like, in assisted living facilities, they have activities and they play like Wii bowling and they make flower arrangements. And, there's all kinds of activities, not to mention you go down and you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner so that you can be around your friends or be around your family. And then they have outings where they go out and do things outside of the facility so that everybody can still be social because being social is really important for your mental health. And they stopped doing those social activities. So now all these residents are just stuck in their rooms all by themselves, no family members, and no activities. That's not going to be good for your mental health at all. And that's an actual fact. That is not good for your mental health, especially when you're scared shitless of dying, especially when you know that you're starting to lose your memory, especially when you don't know how much longer you have on earth and you want nothing more than to be around your loved ones because you're scared, or because maybe you're not scared, but you just want to see them before you die. Well, my mom was getting scared. And when she could still call and know my phone number, she would call me and tell me, I am so scared. I'm so scared. I don't want to die alone. I do not want to die alone. Please don't make me die alone. Please don't let me die alone. Please come see me. That broke my heart. And Kate fucking Brown and the goddamn Biden administration, they're a bunch of killers because they knew that all of this was a bunch of bullshit. They didn't allow actual facts. They didn't allow statistics. They gave misinformation and they lied. And because of that, people died alone and scared. Because of that, businesses that were mom and pop shops, that were the livelihood for people to be able to pay their bills, to be able to put food on the table, mom and pop shops closed down. Meanwhile, billionaires got even richer. Jeff Bezos, richer. Fucking Walmart. Now, how did Walmart become somehow immune to everything? How did big, huge chains, big, huge corporation stores, how did they suddenly have a bubble around them, a force field that kept cooties out? I was one of those people that would act like I'd wear a mask to get into a place, and then I took it off. And if anybody said anything, I just kept walking and I didn't give a shit. And I also didn't get vaccinated. And look at me, still going strong. But they kept me from my mom, and my mom was scared to death. And all of these people that died alone in a hospital, that is blood on the Biden administration and the extreme left's hands. Shame on you. If you're a lefty that was into all of this, blood is on your hands. If you are a part of the Biden administration that spread misinformation and put people down and bullied people and harassed people and were all for people getting fired if they didn't inject something into their body that was never researched enough, that wasn't on the shelf long enough or in people's bodies long enough to know what the side effects were. And you're telling people that they better take it while screaming, "My body, my choice." Hypocrites, you have blood on your hands. You are part of the reason my mom and everybody else's family member died, and you should feel guilty. Because I have massive PTSD because my mom called me when she could, begging me to come visit her and wondering why I wasn't with her because she was scared to death to die alone. My mom and other people's moms, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, friends, neighbors, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, all died needlessly, because the extreme left and the Biden administration decided to make a bunch of false, ridiculous lies and spread them around, and then forced people to be away from their family members in hospitals during their dying breath. Forced our elderly to be alone and not be able to go down and do activities. People were dying of a broken heart. My mom ended up not being able to use a phone anymore, so I had to call caregivers and put the phone up to her ear and talk to her that way. Well, finally, I decided, fuck all of you. I'm going to go see my mom, and you can arrest me, and I don't care. And that is what I did. And I've talked about that on many podcasts before. I decided I don't give a shit if I get arrested. I want my mom to know I love her and that it was our government that was keeping me away, and I'm not going to listen to our government anymore. So I marched my ass in there, and I did that like 3 different times. And again, to their credit, they never called the police on me. I think they knew that I would fucking absolutely annihilate them. And by the way, I did call 1 million radio stations. I called 1 million TV stations. And nobody wanted to hear it in 2020 or 2021 because that's when everybody was just gleefully walking around somehow with their heads up their asses, running into each other because their heads were so far up their own ass that they couldn't see what was actually going on, and nobody wanted to hear it. That's when everybody was calling us conspiracy theorists and calling us all those names and everything and thinking that we're terrible because we didn't want to inject something into our body that we didn't know any information about. Again, while screaming, "My body, my choice," the hypocrisy is just thick. So unfortunately for Christmas this year, I'm thinking about how much I miss my mom and how she probably would still be alive if it weren't for the Biden administration. Because caregivers, unfortunately, quit. A lot of them quit. So places were very short-staffed and people were not getting the care that they needed. My mom died from being severely septic because she had a catheter and it wasn't getting cleaned out hardly at all because half the staff quit. And already there weren't enough staff, but CNAs don't last very long because they don't get paid very much and they're not appreciated. So very often they already start out short-staffed. And then when you make it mandatory that they have to get vaccinations, you lose some people. And in a very important job that you can't afford to lose people because caregivers are incredibly important. And my mom did not get the care that she needed. And so they didn't clean her catheter. Rarely. She also sat in clothes for like a week. So again, all you crazy leftists out there, you have blood on your hands, and I will never forgive you, just so you know. And yet you go around talking about Trump being a Nazi. You go around having the audacity to call people racist because they talk about how it's a fact that in the Black community, dads don't stick around very much. And because dads don't stick around very much, kids end up growing up, unfortunately, with some issues. When you don't have a mom and a dad and you don't have structure in your life, that can cause some problems. Now, yes, of course, it absolutely can also cause some problems if you have a mom and a dad. I'm not saying that if you have a mom and a dad and you don't come from a divorced family or a family, and I'm not even talking about divorced families. I'm talking about a parent, whether it's a dad or a mom, that's just never around, that isn't in the picture, that's gone. I'm not talking joint custody. I'm not talking about divorce. I'm saying if you have a parent that's not around at all, that's going to cause some problems with kids. And so it's somehow racist to point out that in the Black community, dads notoriously don't stick around. And now that's a racist thing. But people just got a little crazy and a little too unhinged. And now it's funny because here we are in 2024. And now that Trump has won, all of a sudden, Hollywood and all these people that were screaming and crying are starting to reel it in a little bit because they're realizing people are really sick of it. It's so old. Again, I talked about this on my last podcast, but no one cares. It's so not fashion sensible to call people a bigot and a racist and a homophobe because no one cares anymore. When you get called that for 8 years, it just bounces off you. Pew, 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 force field, Wonder Woman. No one cares. It just bounces off because you overplayed your hand. So it's interesting that Hollywood is starting to be like, oh shit, people aren't taking our crap anymore. There's a new sheriff in town. Uh-oh, we better rein it in. But what's annoying is that you watch, they're going to start taking credit and they're going to start acting like this is a new concept. They're going to act like the things that conservatives and just non-crazy people with logic and common sense have been saying for a very long time now. All of a sudden, they're going to be like, hey, I have this new thing. And they're going to act like they can't. They're going to spew out everything that we've been saying, and then they're going to take all the credit for it. Because that's what they do. It's insane. So unfortunately, on Christmas, where I'm going with this is that I'm trying to be merry and jolly and all of that. And I'm not in a bad mood. I'm really not. I sound like I am, but I'm not. I meant it when I said on my last podcast that I am just chilling. I went and played with my dogs. I played with my dogs and let them run around, and we played out in the rain and got them some treats and got myself some treats, and it's been great. I'm just unfortunately a bit sad because I'm thinking of my mom and thinking of my dad and my family members that aren't here, and I'm thinking of the fact that my mom's birthday's around the corner, which leads me to think about how she passed away and the bullshit that she just shouldn't have. And many people are sitting here without their family members on Christmas because of the Biden administration. And I'm going to keep saying that because it is their fault. They do have blood on their hands. They have blood on their hands with Afghanistan. They have blood on their hands through many riots where businesses have been burnt down and people lost their livelihood because of all the riots and all the destruction that went on in Seattle and Portland and everywhere over George Floyd. That is blood on your hands. You promoted that. You condoned it. There were no consequences and you wanted more. You ripped away people's livelihoods, and there were people that were killed and people that were hurt because you promoted anger over, again, misinformation against things that you didn't even know what you're talking about. You censored people. You censored facts. You censored actual statistics over COVID, over George Floyd, over so many things. So now that the new year is around the corner and Trump will be in office, I'm scared shitless for him, though, because there's so many crazy people out there. They've already attempted an assassination multiple times now. So I'm scared shitless they're going to try it again when he's president, because if they've done it when he's not even president yet, I'm scared to death what they're going to try when he is, because people know there's a new sheriff in town and that everybody is tired of the Democratic bullshit. It's so over. It is time again to brush yourself off, pick yourself up, head held high, and be proud that we're not going to take it and we're taking our country back. This is our country. Those taxpayers, those tax-paying, hardworking citizens, it is our country. So unfortunately, on Christmas, I'm going to say fortunately, I'm actually feeling patriotic as if it's the 4th of July. I'm feeling like January is around the corner and I'm feeling hopeful. And it's nice to feel hopeful. Again, I'm not even in a bad mood. I'm not in a bad mood at all. I'm just thinking of my mom, and it just kind of made me, cry a little and get a little angry for a moment. But it reminded me of why I started this podcast, what my intention was when I started this podcast. And so I just want to kind of make sure I still stuck to my word and remembered why I started this podcast. So, hey, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're missing a loved one, I'm so sorry. My heart goes out to you. I'm sending hugs and Merry Christmas to you. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. If this is your first time or not, I appreciate you. I appreciate those of you in every country, every city, everywhere. It means the world to me that you've given me a chance. So thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holiday. Again, if you don't celebrate Christmas, then happy December 25th. Until next time.